Hey, it's me, Bobbert, and today it's Valkyria Chronicles 4 versus Sakura Wars Surround My Love. Sakura Wars is not only my first review, but also my first video ever, while Valkyria Chronicles 4 is an instant classic in my book. Both of them are turn-based RPG, and both are owned by Sega, but which one is better? Let's find out. The story of Valkyria Chronicles 4 focuses on four soldiers from Gaia fighting for the Federation to defeat the Empire. At first, the story is pretty standard, alright, just going off to war, defeating the enemy while they keep on attacking you each and every turn. They're doing some comedic moments here and there, but it picks up once you get to the end, especially when you get to the enemy side of the story. As for the main characters themselves, I'll get to that later. On to Sakura Wars. I feel the story is consistently good. It stars a guy named Shinjo Tiger who travels from Tokyo to New York to join the New York Comic Review. He didn't exactly receive a warm welcome from his teammates as they were expecting someone else. Throughout the story, Shinjo gained respect from each of his teammates and eventually becomes the captain of the team. The villain side of the story is pretty weak. Most of them are pretty much the monster of the week or chapter in this case, and their motivation are pretty one note, but entertaining at least. Except for this bunny kid who appears throughout the game, who didn't leave much of an impression, but again I get to that when I get to the character part of the video, which is right about now actually. Let's start with the protagonist of Valkyria Chronicles 4. Claude Wars is the leader of Squad E, and his main character development is being more courageous and redeeming himself with his childhood friend Rai. Back when they were kids, the main antagonist of the game set fire to Rai's dad's operation, killing all her family. Claude had a chance to save them, but he only managed to save Rai and just left everybody else behind. Now keep in mind this is back when they were kids, so you can understand why this would be a frightening experience for a kid. And he always been known as a coward as a kid, even before then, with some childhood pranks. And throughout the game, well, for the first part, when redeeming himself was right, he did that pretty easily in one chapter very early on by completing one mission and earning her trust. But throughout the game, that test of courage does come true near the end, especially that one involving his best friend. But without spoiling too much, let's just say it was a very tough decision. Now on to Rai. I mentioned that her family died and has some connection with the main antagonist. Unfortunately, that doesn't really get much development. Other than that, she's alright. Raz, Claude's best friend, is pretty hot-headed and didn't give off the best first impression, let's just say that, especially with Kai. But later on during the game, he becomes much cooler and has one very awesome moment. Again, not to spoil too much because this is a big spoiler, but let's just say it's connected to Claude's story. And Kai is probably the most interesting. She seems friendly at first, but later on it's discovered that she's actually a spy for the Imperial Army. The main antagonist is the one who really shined in this game. Lord Belgar, the main antagonist of this game, the final boss, is the one who killed Rai's family and wanted to use his experiment to pretty much gather all the Valkyria's power to take over the world. Other than that, he doesn't get much development, and he's the final boss of this game. Forseti is actually Kai's brother. In fact, Forseti is the actual Kai Shurin, and his sister is actually named Nina. He pretty much used Nina to spy on Squad E and the rest of the Federation, so the Empire will have the upper hand. And he says he's doing this for the good for both sides and help him and his sister live a happier life. But it turns out he was just doing it for his own good. And at first, he was being reasonable, but later on, he's starting to get crazier. Innocent people were getting killed, and it was hurting everybody, even his own sister. Near the end, it implies that Forseti gone crazy due to the war and what he experienced. But other than that, I kind of question his motivation. Like, his main motivation is to save one particular person, which is a bit in a spoiler territory. And I'm not sure how he would be able to get away with it, even if he was successful in that mission. Now on to the main Valkyria herself, Chimera. Chimera was pretty much tortured all her life, mainly because she's a Valkyria who has this extraordinary power, and the Empire try to do whatever they can to pretty much get the full potential out of her power. She's considered to be one of the most powerful Valkyria out there, but the problem is that she's unable to control her powers at time. All her teammates call her weak and pathetic because of that, and this pretty much gives her some serious depression, and really feel bad for her throughout the game. There's only one individual that actually cheered her up, and that's Lieutenant Cross. Kraus he's kind of a womanizer at first. He's pretty weird. Definitely got a weird first impression out of him, but throughout the game, he's actually a pretty cool guy. He actually knows how to treat a lady, cares so much about Chimera that he eventually falls in love with her. Again, I don't want to spoil too much about Lieutenant Cross, but he's pretty much one of my favorite characters in this game. As for the side characters, there's Minerva, who's the leader of Squad F and Quad's biggest rival. She's tried to outdo Quad in every single turn, but most of the time fails, and eventually she becomes a member of Squad E due to an event that technically was Quad's fault and technically not. Again, I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but pretty much Minerva doesn't forgive Quad for what he did. There's also Angie, the little girl in this war. Again, not to spoil too much, but then again, I think anybody can figure out her role without even trying, even those who haven't even played the game, considering the title of this game. So again, but her character is pretty much this nice girl willing to help anybody. Onto the enemy side, we have Chikara and Nika, two crazy girls out for destruction. They pretty much hate everybody, including each other. And finally, we got the members of Squad E. All the squad members have their own story, usually consists of 3 members each, and pretty much give them a background of why they're fighting in this war. Pretty basic, but very entertaining. It's fun going through each story and knowing a bit more about the characters. Now on to the characters in Sakura Wars on my left. I already told you about Shinjiro and his journey, so let's focus on the other 5 characters. There's Jiminy Sunrise, who is nice and kind-hearted. She could be a bit naive and clumsy, sometimes getting herself into trouble, and she also struggles to fit into New York, going from the country to the big city. There's also a story with the masked woman, which, well, as you can see, it's obvious what the story is. All I can say is that without spoiling anything, it's not entirely what you think it is. There's also Subaru, who keeps to herself quite a bit. Not conversation-wise, she does talk and interact with other characters, but she refuses to reveal any personal life. But she's also smart. She's very famous. Technically, all the members are actors on the stage, but she's famous worldwide. And once you get along with her more often, she becomes a lot more friendlier. This Karen Archer, she's an attorney, but she was also in a motorcycle gang. She's got a bit of an anger issues at times, but for the most part, she's pretty cool. And she really loves her talent in Harlem. There's Rosita, a little kid bounty hunter. She's funny and energetic. She's probably the most funniest character in this game. And she has a real appetite for food. And there's Diana, who is a vegetarian. She loves animals, but she's also an expert in medicine, training to be a doctor. But she could be a bit of a drama queen at times. Now, with the side characters and their development, it depends on how much you interact with them while you're walking around New York City. Technically, you need to do this with the 5 main characters to get more information in the alternate endings, but with the side characters, it's even more so if you want to learn more about them. There's Rachel Altair, who is the former captain of the Star Division, but she had to leave that position because she's unable to battle anymore. Now she serves as Shinjiro's mentor and teacher. There's Commander Sunnyside, who is pretty strange. Not much development with him. He has some cool moments here and there, but for the most part, he's just comedy relief. There's Sherry and Audrey, who gives recon to the Star Division to give them information about the enemy, and they also work at the theater. Sherry is the bartender who likes to tease Shinjiro out just for fun, and Audrey works at the gift shop and has a crush on Shinjiro, but she'll never admit it. In fact, she always picks on him a lot. Just think of Helga Pataki from Hey Arnold, and that's pretty much Audrey. And there's also Kayama, who I admit I don't talk to that much through all my playthroughs, but he does provide some information to where to go next. And as for the other side characters, you can interact with them and get some development on them, but they're not very important to the story. So for the most part, the side characters are just okay. As for the bad guys, I already mentioned earlier that most of them are pretty one note. Like, one of them wants power, the other one wants money, one of them wants, the entire bird population to take over the world and kill all the birds. One of them wants to turn all the women into stone. Pretty much the basic stuff. I would say the characters are at least entertaining performance-wise, but for the most part, they don't get much development. As for the bunny girl, or the bunny boy, it's really easy to confuse the gender of the main antagonist, or at least the sort of main antagonist. But the bunny boy pretty much introduced himself in the beginning, foreshadowing what's to come at the end. But doing all the in-between stuff, he does help out the main antagonist of each chapter. But for the most part, he's just disappeared. He does get some development of why Jiminy Sunrise wants revenge on him. But other than that, he's just there for the most part and somewhat forgettable. Now the main antagonist, Nobunaka, is actually pretty entertaining. He's pretty powerful, and he's actually playing mind games, even getting to the minds of, Shinjiro's friends, kind of turning against him, literally in some cases. It's only a shame that he's only at the end and we don't get to see much of him. I think the game would have been a bit better if we saw him throughout each chapter, even if it's just little by little, because he is a pretty interesting character. So pretty much in Valkyria Chronicles 4, the main antagonists were better, but in Sakura Wars 5, the protagonists are better. Now on to the gameplay. This is kind of weird for me because usually I talk about gameplay first in these kind of video, but in this case I'm talking about it last, and it's going to be the deciding factor of which game is better. Valkyria Chronicles 4 is a turn-based RPG that has different classes to pick from, like tanks, sharpshooters, snipers, and grenaders, and more than that. And each of them are designed to take down the enemy depending on the situation. And pretty much each class does the same thing, more or less. you have different characters to pick from, but for the most part, with some minor stat differences, they pretty much do the same thing. But what separates them are the potentials that can either help or hurt that specific characters, like give them more HP, more attack power, etc., or even decrease it. You can also improve your soldier stats by taking them to camps, giving them different weapons to improve their attack power, range, and or accuracy, or giving them order that is temporary in the battlefield. The mission is surprisingly diverse. Technically, you are doing the same thing for the most part, but each mission in the main story has a twist to make each of them feel unique and fun as well. Like sometimes you're catching enemy camp, you're battering in crazy weather conditions, and even doing some escort missions. I feel like this game, I was excited by what's coming up next because each mission was so much fun. There's two modes in Sakura Wars on my love. Let's start with the ground missions. Each character can do the same thing like basic attacks, super attacks, healing, team attack, etc. But some of them have different abilities, and by that I mean a couple of the characters have, similar abilities, just a bit different. Like some of them are long range, some of them can go through enemies or above them that is blocking the path, and some of them can heal multiple people. The flying mode is the same gameplay wise, but I feel it's a bit limited. It's harder to aim for a specific enemy at times, and the special ability that you have on the ground is not as effective in the air. I feel the objective of most battles are pretty creative. One of them I like is the bomb puzzle, when you have to find the right button to free your friends or get hit by a bomb. Others like destroying parasites and rescuing statue remnants are also great. Unfortunately, most of these battles are few and far between, as in there's only like two per chapter, with the exception near the end of the game. So these are pretty rare in Sakura Wars So My Love. Now in the story section, you also get these mini games, I like to call it, like QTEs or multiple choice, which is okay. Nothing really special about them. This is a nice little distraction from the story, and they do help level up your characters if you perform them right. Well, I have a new favorite RPG made by Sega, and that's Valkyria Chronicles 4. I'll admit this was a close battle. I like both games very much, and at the beginning I didn't know which one's going to win in my opinion, but after playing through both games, I decided to go with Valkyria Chronicles 4 for its great story, fantastic music, and simple gameplay that kept me interested because of the change of objective and how deep the combat can be. I really do recommend this game. I really recommend picking this game up, even getting the DLC, which for the record I did not include in this discussion. I just talked about the main story and that's it. But there is a lot to offer in this game. I really do like this game. I really do recommend it. Now, even though I picked Valkyria Chronicles 4, Sakura Wars is still one of my favorite games. Sakura Wars Song My Love is my very first review, one of my first videos, and it will still hold a very special place in my heart. It's still a great game. This one's a bit harder to get, I think, but if you're able to find it and you love RPGs, I do recommend this game as well. But if I had to recommend one or two, definitely Valkyria Chronicles 4. Anyways, I've been talking about Sakura Wars so many times. I've done like 2 different reviews, a playthrough, and now a versus video. And this will be the last time I talk about Sakura Wars Song My Love. Well, until the next time. This is me, Bobbert, and I catch you guys later.